So, I am a man.
No, say it ain't so.
And as a man, I enjoy myself some boobs. I also enjoy video games. Combine the two, and you get something that's just great. But people may not enjoy what I enjoy, and that's okay. But when you set out to make sure that others who enjoy what I may enjoy may not get the things we enjoy, then we have a problem. I'm going to give a few examples of some games that have come under some scrutiny as of late, and my opinions on the fact. So, starting off the SJW shitstorm is the Jiggle Physics Phenomenon Dead or Alive Extreme 3. When I saw this on GameStop.com with a February 2016 release date, I was excited for it, because 1, it was finally coming to a console other than the fucking Xbox, 2, that sweet boobage running on that next-gen hardware, and 3, it ensured Episodes has Booby Month for another year. But as the release date grew closer, Dead or Alive Extreme was slowly getting headlines on websites stating that it wasn't getting an American, or any other region, release date. Luckily for me, and my fellow Polygon chick enthusiasts, Koei Tecmo was like, hey, you like tits? Import them. So, anyone who bought the Asian version, unlike me, could play the game with English subtitles and English text. Now, is it a pain in the ass to have to import it? Yeah. But it's a good way to show the company that produces the game that SJWs are a bunch of whiny assholes and your demographic is going to stand by your product. Next on the chopping block is Street Fighter V. No, not because it was a bare-bones, half-assed attempt at a fighting game that was released before it was even finished. No. It's because of Cammy and Armika's asses. So, when Street Fighter V was being pimped out harder than a hooker on a rainy day, they were showing everybody's intros and finishers, to get you really hyped up for the game. And those crazy Japanese bastards were like, hey, Armika, the chick with the amazingly voluptuous ass? Let's have her slap her ass right before her and her tag team partner slam their collective bootydom into your head while doing their finisher. And yeah, it was silly, and yeah, the fan art and hentai was amazing of it. But it was met with pretty positive feedback. Now on to the one that kind of flew under the radar, for me at least. Cammy's intro. Cammy, being the crazy acrobatic chick that she is, does a whole bunch of crazy flips and shit before sliding with a direct intercept path of the camera into her ass. Now, not as prevalent as Armika's ass slap heard around the world, but it's a booty shot nonetheless. So of course, someone online had to pitch a bitch stating that it was objectifying women and it was unacceptable, and Capcom changed the angles of the intros and cutscenes for those two characters in particular. Yet, when you have enough health during a first round victory, Cammy still flaunts her ass. Missed that one, did you, SJW Brigade? And finally we come to Overwatch, a game that isn't even released yet. But it looks amazeballs. I already have the thing pre-ordered. It looks like the next Team Fortress 2, really, with its smooth character design, Disney-esque character design, pretty balanced looking and varied team characters. It just looks like a fun time. But Blizzard received some backlash over Tracer's victory post stating that it ruined the gaming experience for them and it wasn't anything like the character. A pose. A fucking pose. Has nothing to do with the game. Has nothing to do with the gameplay. Doesn't change the character in any way. Doesn't change the story in any way. Someone got their panties in a bunch over a victory pose. An optional victory pose. You fucking kidding me? Here's the damn pose. Her back to the camera in a sassy stance with her hips slightly off kilter. Much reminiscent of Cammy's victory pose. But if my previous statement holds any water, it shows that SJWs are perfectly fine with that pose. So why is Tracer under fire with this? And as I was writing the script for this, Blizzard decided to change the pose to something that I find is actually sexier than the original pose. So, good on you, Blizzard! This brings me to my opinions on the matter. See, back in the gaming days of Nintendo, Sega, even PS1 and N64, you didn't have gaming under such a huge magnifying glass that it currently is under. You had magazines that would tell you what was coming out for a game, You didn't have the internet with its constant updates on game mechanics and features and release date pushbacks and what this character does and what this character does. No, you had a magazine. You had Nintendo Power, you had EGM, you had whatever else was out there. And it would show you little snippets of game pictures, screenshots, and it would have a small synopsis of what the game was about and a release date. And you'd be lucky if you got an update within the next issue, because they had better things to do than be like, this is our game, this is what's happening in the game, this is our game again, this is still what's happening. Hey, this guy is slightly different than before. Because they were working on the damn game. And if something was iffy in the game, it was up to the publisher to decide to take it out of the game. They didn't have to worry about some whiny cunt online going, this objectifies women, or this isn't what the character would do, because God forbid they made the fucking game. An example being Thrill Kill, a game that was slated for PS1. A 4-player brawler that took place in hell. Yeah, hell. You would play as characters that were in hell for the sins they committed on Earth. You'd have a dominatrix that would torture her subs, a plastic surgeon that would experiment on his victims while he was performing surgeries, the list goes on. But Virgin Interactive looked at it and said, we don't want to be known for this shit, it's too extreme, and they pulled the plug on it. Right when it was ready to be put on store shelves. It was finished, it just needed a few tweaks here and there, and it was going to be shipped and ready to be put on your PlayStation 1. They canceled it because of moral obligation. Now, was it a great game? Fuck no! The game was clunky as shit and the fucking cutscenes were sent to another country that had no idea what the game was even about. But later it got leaked online in its entirety, so anybody with a modded PlayStation 1 or a PlayStation 1 emulator could play it. So, not a huge loss, but it's an example of a company taking the high road on something that they felt was objectable. Another game is Final Fight. Now, anybody that knows Final Fight or Street Fighter knows of Poison. You know, Poison. That long-legged, curvy, seductive dude. Poison's a guy. But he wasn't always a guy. No. See, Poison and her counterpart Roxy were enemies that you could fight alongside other enemies in the game, mostly male enemies. But when they tried to release it in America, they tried to pass Poison off as a transvestite in order to say, hey, it's not a dude beating the shit out of a girl, it's a dude-on-dude violence. They didn't see it that way here. So we ended up with Billy and Sid. Now, Capcom still sticks to the fact that Poison's a guy, be it in Japan where he just tucks his junk, or in America where he's a full-on post-op tranny. But during the time, they weren't ready to tackle the issue, so they made Poison and Roxy Billy and Sid. They changed their genders in order to avoid controversy. Anyone else seeing a pattern here? Personal responsibility versus forced responsibility? See, in the gaming days of the 80s and 90s, you didn't have the cries of social justice, because people had better shit to worry about then. But with the ease and anonymity of the internet currently, anyone can piss and moan and bitch and complain until a game developer decides, hey, let's give the baby its fucking bottle so I can get back to working on the game and reaching my deadline. Worst part is, it's not even gamers complaining about this shit half the time. They see games like Dead or Alive or Tracer's ass and take it at face value and automatically go, this is objectifying women, or this offends me, instead of being a damn adult and looking at it and being like, hey, I don't like that game. Guess I won't buy it. And you'll always have those idiots that try to use the, well, video games are for kids excuse to justify keeping it all child-friendly and PC. But let me remind you of an Atari 2600 game called Custer's Revenge, a game released in 1982. A game where you play as General Custer avoiding a slew of arrows in order to try and fuck an Indian chick against a cactus. Yeah, super child-friendly for the early days of console gaming, is it not? And yet again, the company that produced this game took moral responsibility. They made sure that you had to ask for it by name, and you had to have a valid ID in order to purchase it. And it wasn't easily accessible because it wasn't on store shelves. You had to know about it in order to ask for it. And even when you got it home, you could throw away the box it came in, and it had a fancy little leather case to make sure that nobody knew what it was. So if you had a kid running around the house, it was just a fancy leather case. They weren't going to see it as a porn game. Let's talk about Conker's Bad Fur Day, a game with cute talking fuzzy animals, inanimate objects that can talk, a flower with tits, a Saving Private Ryan reenactment scene, gallons of blood, and language that would make a sailor blush. But when it was originally marketed, it was a child-friendly game much like Banjo-Kazooie, a fuzzy platformer that was met with reviews of, "Oh god, another one of these." So, Rare took it and made it to the mature audience-only game that we all know and love. Now, I remember commercials for this game, seeing it during South Park with a big fat 18 only across the fucking screen during most of the more graphic scenes like the T-Rex eating the caveman or something, and thinking, I need this game. Now, me, I grew up on games like Doom, and I grew up with movies with Nightmare on Elm Street, so my parents were pretty fine with me seeing gore and shit. It was mostly the sexual aspect which I showed them, and they were okay with because it was pretty tame. But, again, it wasn't marketed towards my age group. They took responsibility for what they were putting out. The commercial had a big fat 18, the box had a big fat 18. It was pretty obvious it wasn't meant for kids. And yet, I've seen no one complain about it. I've seen no one bring up its coarse language, sexual themes, gallons of violence, or potty humor. And you want to know why? Because it's a damn good game that was released before the ease and access of the internet for everybody to bitch and complain about what they found offensive. The point I'm trying to make here is, not all games are created with the intent of pleasing everyone. I don't like Xbox or anything affiliated with it, but I'm not going to write Microsoft telling them to stop production because I find their fanbase offensive. I'm going to go out and buy a PS4 and enjoy what I like. Now, if someone were to come up to me and ask my opinion on the matter, if they were to buy an Xbox One or a PS4, I'd obviously lean more towards PS4 and give them my examples as to why they should buy a PS4. But I'm not going to lose sleep over somebody owning another system that I don't like or buying a game that I don't like. It doesn't affect me, and it shouldn't affect you. In conclusion, if a game has something that you don't like, don't buy it. Don't play it. Don't give it any acknowledgement to its existence. Grow the fuck up. Play a game that you enjoy, and realize it's entertainment. It's not for everyone.